Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Why Not Today podcast. And it's where we have real conversations about business growth, mindset, consistency, community, and taking actions of things that matter most. I'm your host, Leslie Kane, and after more than 30 years of mentoring and coaching women in business, I've learned this. Most women are not lacking ideas or ambition. They are overwhelmed, overthinking, working hard, and trying to do too much alone. And that's what Why Not Today is about. Through this podcast, my workshops and coaching programs in the Why Not Today community, I help women entrepreneurs, especially in the service industry, take consistent action with confidence so you can grow their business with more clarity, momentum, and overwhelm. Could you get excited about more sales leads and more money in your pocket? And because success is not about doing everything, it's about focusing on what matters most, building simple systems, and continuing to move forward one step at a time. If you're ready for support, accountability, and practical next steps, you can learn more at whynottodaymovement.com. And let's get into today's episode. So today I want to talk about the power of persistence, fanatical consistency. Persistence and consistency are two words I've used for years and years. I recently read a Mark Batterson book called Win the Day, and it really made me start thinking about things. So your one day, one day it all happens, is really built on stacking lots of why not todays on top of each other. Most people focus on the breakthrough. Successful people focus on today's actions. You got to plant the seeds. So what looks like an overnight success, there's really no such thing, is usually years of fanatical consistency, pleasantly being persistent, and small actions repeated day after day after day after day. So have you ever looked at someone else's success and thought, oh my gosh, they're so lucky? Maybe they landed that big client, maybe their business suddenly took off, maybe their podcast exploded, maybe they're featured at a major publication. What we usually see is the breakthrough. What we don't see is the years of hard work that came before it, the late nights, the weekends, the being ready to quit. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been ready to quit. I'm sure there's lots of entrepreneurs in the same boat. People say that it takes 10 years to become that overnight success. And I think that's so true. Every one day is built on hundreds of thousands of why not days. So, of course, we love the breakthrough story, the success, it seems like, as I said, overnight success. And we talk about celebrating the successful business, the sold out event, the best selling book, the viral post, the podcast growth. But what we don't see is the behind the scenes, as I mentioned. The networking, it's going to the events when you're tired, when it's late, when it's snowing. I've done some crazy things. Some traffic. I remember one time I went to an appointment and literally I didn't realize how far it was. There was a storm that blew in. The wind was blowing. Trees fell down. I got to the location and it was up a hill in the mud. And oh my gosh, it was such a disaster. Literally, in the appointment, I always ask, tell me your name. And somebody told me their name. And later I was referencing that name and everybody's laughing. Somebody gave me a fake name. I finished the appointment and got out of there. My pink Cadillac got stuck in the mud, so much so that mud was spitting all over my car. So I had to have one of the guys there come and get it out of the mud. And he got in with his muddy boots. And I'm like, oh my goodness, nobody sees those things. And I'm crying, leaving there. I'm like, I promise you, I'm successful. But it's those things, the networking, the talking to people, the talking to more people, the following up. It's making the calls when you don't feel like it. We never really feel like it. It's the mistakes we've had, the learning, the persistence, and just those boring, ordinary days, the things you need to do to grow. So success usually arrives suddenly, but it's also built gradually. What looks like an overnight success, as I said, is years of why not today. So do you know the story of the bamboo? The Chinese bamboo story. For years, you plant bamboo seeds, and for years, nothing happens above ground. The gardener waters it, tends it, shows up every day. Nothing seems to happen. And then suddenly it shoots up like hundreds of feet, tons of feet, like overnight. And the growth didn't happen overnight. The roots were growing the entire time. And literally there was some bamboo near me, and I saw it growing. It did shoot up. So many people quit during the root growing season. And that's where your perseverance, that's where your courage is built. Um, and just because you can't see the progress doesn't mean the progress isn't happening. Um, in Mark's book, he talks about fanatical consistency. He shares that successful leaders often couldn't identify one breakthrough moment, but one lucky break or one big innovation. The answer was fanatical consistency. Guys, I'm going to say it over and over again. You got to work consistently. Few things can be done in a day, but nothing can be done without a day. Today is all we've got, so we'd better make it count. That's directly from the book. So if you want to get healthy and work out, build those muscles, they're built one workout at a time. You know, if you're building your contacts, your leads, your customers, it's one networking conversation at a time. If you're building a podcast, it is one podcast episode at a time. Like literally, I started over 4 years ago, and I thought, who would ever listen to this? We just crossed over 9,000 listeners. It's one follow-up at a time. It's one courageous action at a time. It's keep showing up, and life goals become daily habits, and dreams become reality from those daily actions. So, as I mentioned, the podcast, it's growing, and we just hit 9,000. And I looked the other day, and 98 people had listened to it in a 24-hour period. Like that got my attention. Podcast is beginning to get some momentum. Those 98 listeners didn't appear because of one episode. It was 4 years of podcasting, hundreds of episodes, hundreds of guest interviews, consistent publishing, talking to people, sharing content, building relationships, showing up week after week. The growth I'm seeing today is a result of years of why not days and boring days. So the lesson is momentum often starts building long before you can see. So Mark Batterson is actually a pastor of a church called National Community Church in Washington, D.C. And I followed him, read his books, saw him actually at an Easter sunrise service. And so his story is interesting. He had planted a seed, I think in the Illinois, Chicago area, and it failed. And so he ended up with his wife moving to D.C., and they were trying to grow this church, and it was not growing very quickly. In 5 years, it grew from this little small group to 250 people. Guys, that's not a big mega church, which it is today. Nobody was noticing. No headlines, no recognition, just faithful consistency. He obviously wasn't making much money. And then one day, somebody at the Washington Post reached out, wanted to do a story, and they said it was going to be in the religious section. So he gets the paper that morning and goes to the religious section, and he's not there. He almost put the paper back. He's like, I'm not even buying it. But as he was putting it back, he noticed not that he was in the religious section. He was in the front page of the Washington Post, guys. That is a big deal. And that year, the attendance doubled. And from the outside, it looked like it was one lucky break, but it wasn't. It was 5 years of preparing for meeting this opportunity. And so it took time. So the breakthrough is usually the visible result of invisible persistence. And he also talks about something called persistent hunting. The hunters didn't catch, so it talked about hunters, this tribe that call, I think they're Kudu, I don't remember the name of the tribe, but this tribe could catch these animals. And it wasn't because they were faster, it was because they were persistent. They kept going, they stayed focused, and they didn't quit. I mean, how many times have you heard somebody winning a race that just consistently ran? It wasn't the Zoom eeks that a lot of us usually do. So it's survival of the persistent. And that's how we're going to succeed in business. It's not always the most talented person who wins. It's the person who keeps showing up, who follows up, who keeps learning, and who stays the game. I have always said that I am going to be pleasantly persistent with people. Now, in my other business, Mary Kay, it's a pampering thing. You're pampering people, and often women put themselves on the bottom of the list. And so although they want it, they're not always going to be the first to take care of themselves. And so I am pleasantly persistent. I follow up. If somebody pops in my head, I'll send them a text, I'll email. There's somebody I've been trying to connect with something totally else. And she responded, I texted her, just that wanted to put this back on the top of your list. And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm running 2 businesses. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm not trying to blow you off. And I'm like, I totally get it. I am in the same boat. But, just keeping front of mind, if you think of somebody, send them a text, follow up, still want to see if you're interested. And I will continue to reach out to people until basically they tell me to go jump the lake. And people ghost you, and I found too that people ghost you. Um, and the longer they ghost you, the more embarrassed they are, and so they don't follow up. So, being persistent, it's sending the email, it's going to another networking event. One thing I have found about being persistent and consistent is networking events that you're showing up to the same one over and over so people get to know you. There's one that I go to all the time, and if they're local and want to go with me, it's pretty much my favorite. It's called Million Cups. And I show up there pretty much every 2 weeks because people get to know me. There's people that have heard me speak. I talked to somebody the other day that she said she met me a year ago. And I don't quite remember, but she's been following me and watching what I've been doing. And so it's consistent connection. It's staying in touch, it's sending the note. I was with somebody yesterday and she said she needed to write some thank you notes. And I inspired her to do that. It makes a difference. It's a check-in. It's keeping them in your back pocket, not because you're trying to sell them, because you're building that relationship, and relationships take time. I've mentioned probably many episodes that I had somebody that I met one day on a lake, and this was 13 years ago. And then she reached out to me. She's like, "Are you still a Mary Kay consultant? I want to buy some products." So persistence is not being pushy. It's not that pushy salesperson. Persistence is caring enough to stay connected. And so most people are waiting for their one day. One day I'll start. One day I'll launch. One day I'll write the book. That's funny that I'm sharing this is that yesterday when I was meeting with my friend Laura, who's been on the podcast a couple of times, Laura Carty, we were talking about, she's an author and written a book. And I was like, yeah, I want to do it. And she gave me an idea based on these podcasts. And I literally came home and threw in the computer an outline. So I started. We'll see when it happens. One day I'll have enough confidence. One day I'll have enough time. Has anybody ever said that? But here's what I've learned. One day is built on fanatical consistency. One day is built through pleasant persistence. And one day is built doing the boring things long after the excitement wears off. One day is built by stacking those why not todays on top of a why not today, on top of a why not today. And eventually what looks like an overnight success, everyone else becomes your one day. Who can get excited about having that one day? So what is one small action you can take today that your future self will thank you for? That extra call, that thing you've been putting off, the thing, and it's often, we worry, we blow things up in our mind that are going to be so bad. And usually, we procrastinate and it only takes a few minutes to do something. It's because your one day can start today. So I challenge you to take a one day and do that thing today. Reach out to the person. If you think about starting a business, find out, reach out to me. I'm happy to help you, but find out how do you start an LLC. If you want to start getting healthier, they always say you can start a diet in the middle of a bag of potato chips. Just one thing, and they do add up. I promise you. So be persistent, pleasantly persistent, fanatically consistent, and your one day will come by stacking those why not todays. So thank you for listening to this episode of Why Not Today podcast. And if this conversations encourage you to look at things in a different way, I'd love for you to share this episode with a friend, post it on social media, leave a review. By people leaving reviews and liking it, subscribing it, that helps us grow and more people can see the Why Not Today message. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, inconsistent, stuck, or simply tired of figuring everything out alone, I want to let you know support is available. Inside the Why Not Today community, we have on Facebook workshops, coaching programs. We focus on simple systems, accountability, mindset, community, and taking consistent action so you can move forward with more clarity and less chaos. I've also created a guide called What's Hard in Business and How to Make It Easier to help women entrepreneurs identify challenges holding them back and simplify their next steps. And you can download this by just going to the Why Not Today movement.com website and enter your email. Remember, progress does not come from having everything figured out. It comes from taking the next step. So why not ask yourself, why not today? So thanks again for listening, and I'll be back again next week. Bye.